Crew always fills up, but I do have some small things I was going to pass around, so if you had any interest in seeing them, you might move forward. If not, that's fine. Are you ready to start? Okay. Thanks for coming. I'm Greg Simo. I'm KC9AAO, or on Twitter at Greg Simo. This talk is on amateur radio and why we really don't need internet to transmit messages. Are there any other amateur radios in the room? Uh-oh, that always makes me nervous. If I say something that's not correct, please help me. And let's see. What we're going to look at today is APRS, and it's actually automatic packet reporting system, not positioning system. When it first came out, it does transmit your position if you have that turned on, but that's really not what it was designed for. It's really for text messages over amateur radio. And there's several ways to do this, but we're going to try to look at it without using the internet. Some of the popular uses for APRS are for search and rescue. If we get out to an area and there's not a lot of cellular service, you'll see how this can be used to transmit messages to multiple people or just one-on-one. If we have each group of the rescue has a radio or a device to receive the message. We're also using it here in Louisville. I'm not from Louisville, so there are several beacons going off in Louisville today. I brought it on the iPad, which is using the internet, and we can see the frequencies that they're transmitting the repeater on when their club meetings are. They've got some road closings. Weather stations use APRS to transmit the weather data. There's also APRS is used in balloon tracking. A lot of amateur radios people use weather balloons, and they send balloons up and track them, and this is a great way because it doesn't use a lot of battery because it's really low frequency or low powered. And then of course what's near and dear to all of us is the civil unrest that we see around the world, maybe not so much in the United States just yet, but when the government is coming in and turning off the cellular service or the internet to try to calm the people down so that they can't group. This is really well for sending out group messages. Sorry, I'm not much of a PowerPoint guy. This is a really old picture and a really simple way of how the APRS works. So we have a radio, a TNC, and a computer or a device running software. Like I said, this is a really old picture, so we'll try to expound on this here. The radio that I've got today, and it goes by different pronunciations, I'm calling it a Bofang. It's $34, and it's made in China. There's not much frills to it, but it works really well. If you add on to it the $34, you can add a programming cable that plugs in, and then you can use an open source program to program it, which makes it much easier, and then a lapel mic and a drop-in charger. But for 35 bucks, you got your radio. The next piece of equipment is the TNC, and I've got a definition here of the TNC. TNC converts the signal coming from the computer so it can be transmitted. It's also used, if you Google search this under YouTube, you'll see a kid that took his cell phone and loaded the software on it and plugged the wires right into the radio, shoved it into a box, and then mailed it from his house to Purdue University. And we saw a talk yesterday about war shipping. It was about the same thing that he was doing. And the problem with that is that the TNC does listen to the frequency. It's not transmitting. What this kid did was, by just plugging the cell phone into the radio through the audio jack, it transmitted the whole way. It didn't listen for any kind of traffic that was already on there, which causes a huge problem and is also against the law. So we're fully within the law here today. This is the link for the TNC that I have here. This is a Bluetooth TNC, and I'll pass this around. It runs $64, and then you need the cable that plugs into it, and that connects to either your computer, or we're going to use an Android device here to transmit our signals. There's not a lot of it can be hardwired in, but then that's not as fun. So then we come to the software, and the software is free. We're using APRS Droid, and it does also connect. It uses your Android phone to pull your GPS signal, and then it, of course, transmits to the radio on Bluetooth. And you can do a single shot, and you can tell when it's transmitting, because it should light up red. It takes it a minute to transmit, and then you can hear what it. That's our signal that we're transmitting, and that's just giving our GPS coordinates, our call sign, and then we can put a small snippet in there. Right now, we're just putting DerbyCon 4 hugs for Dave. So we're putting that out on the single frequency, and I think we get to that here. I'm sorry. Here's a map shot of under Open APRS, where you can see some of the signals from here in Louisville. Up at the top, we've got this Dan A. Hoover. He's an extra class. He's operating. He's got his call sign. Looks like a weather station that gives the wind gusts and everything. Down at the in the middle one, we've got a repeater, a club repeater, and Don Hoover's also in charge of that. But it's operating on 147.180, and then another weather station. I think I might have a vehicle on here too. Down at the bottom, we have a vehicle that they're driving. And so APRS operates in an unconnected fashion. That's why I said we're just broadcasting that out on our frequency right now. We're on a VHF radio, which is what this one is, and we're putting it out on 144.390. So any stations out there that are listening can hear our signal. And here, I can pass this around if you want to see it. Yes. Yes. And so that's why I've got this one.
How do you view the locations if you're not at a web base?
If we're not on the internet, it will just show us a generic map, and it'll show us our GPS coordinates. So we don't really know where everyone is unless we're on the internet. But
so during our civil distress,
right,
when they've shut down the internet, how do we still use this?
We put it out on the frequency that we're going to meet at the Hyatt on this 144.300 that we're going to meet at the Hyatt at noon on Sunday. And so it just goes out, and so everyone within range can hear that. Now this particular walkie-talkie, it only has 5 watts, but we're going to cover getting our signal out a little bit stronger without the internet. So, said I'm not a PowerPoint guy. Signal. This is a single use, just going from our radio to another one, because I can send to a particular person if I want to. On the software, you can register it. So that particular one is registered to me, KC9AAO, and if I know your call sign, I can enter your call sign and only send a message to you. Right, no one, yes. Right. No, the amateur radio does not allow any signal to be encrypted.
So it's clear text and it's just ignored.
Yes. Now, this is an instance of a digipeater. So the user on the left is us, and it transmits on that frequency up to a digipeater. Could be in a vehicle. This is, for instance, for search and rescue. So if we've got a vehicle that has a digipeater up on top of the hill, everyone else is down at the bottom, we're transmitting our 5 watts to this digipeater. It's receiving it and maybe putting it up to 25 watts or 100 watts, whatever's in the car, or on top of the building. And there can be more digipeaters. They can be linked. And on the software, you can set the software to how many skips you want it to make. So if you just want it to go to 1 digipeater, 2 digipeters, this is how we can get a message across the state or somewhere, maybe even farther, if the digipeters are linked without using the internet. This is an iGate, and there's several iGates here in Louisville. iGates are connected to the internet. So if we're in the red, we're going to transmit to the digipeater. The digipeter's connected to the cloud, to the internet, and then you can view it if you're on the internet on the bottom. And that's what this one is. This is Pocket Packet. This one's only available for Apple. And we just lost it all. And it shows all the users, and if you click on them, if it's a weather station, it'll give us whatever information they're broadcasting or everything else. But this one does require the internet, so it's not so useful when things go down. Then if you want to send more than just a short message, with the APRS you can only send 45 characters if you wanted to send a message. If we get up to high frequency radio, which requires a higher class license, we can send a message from WinLink. And WinLink is where APRS is really not being used very much, except for weather stations and maybe some small broadcast. WinLink is used for, you'll see here, for shipping. Say you were wealthy and had a sailboat. This is a picture from New Zealand. And so here at the top, this is a node. And so there's 80 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters is what I've highlighted here. So I would tune my radio to 20 meters, and then the frequency is 14084.300. And if I had a message that I wanted to send, I can send it anywhere that I can reach him, send him my email, and he can forward it either through the internet, if he has internet. This is in, like I said, New Zealand, so kim.com will take care of that. Or if he doesn't have it, he can forward it via high frequency radio to maybe another country that does have internet. So even when we see countries that are shutting off their internet, they can still get messages out through the amateur radio system. Amstat is another way. These guys put up, thank you. These guys put up satellites that operate in digital mode. There's one on the space station right now. So if you had a message that you needed to get out, you can send it through the satellite. It's much more difficult, of course, because you have to get the trajectory and everything correct, and the frequency shift. There is a software that will change your antenna as the trajectory changes, but nothing for the new guy, I guess. This is actually the software that shows you the path. We're just looking at it's called FunCube. It's AQ73, and then on the right it just gives us the times and shows the paths. If we tell it exactly where we are, it'll give us the elevation and the azimuth and how to aim our antenna. No. Yeah, yes, exactly. And that's why at the bottom it's showing you the world as a flat map. And so for this particular pass, it wasn't even coming. It's hard to see. It didn't come over the United States on this pass. But there's many more satellites. This was just one that I pulled off. Maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, and so it's pretty cool. I've got an antenna for it, and I've got a handheld antenna, and so you bring up the tracking software, and then you have your radio, and so you have it aimed at the horizon, whichever it tells you to, and then you have to keep moving it at the angle, but then you also have a frequency shift. So you also, not only do you move your antenna, you also have to try to you have the frequency set in your radio, and so you're trying to change the frequencies in your radio, and then you're also trying to talk. And so the satellite, of course, is very popular, so you have lots of people from everywhere trying to talk to it. It's fun, but it's a challenge, that's for sure. And then, thank you. This is the ARRL. We were talking about this before. If you have any interest in amateur radio, this is just one aspect. There's a lot of weather. My wife hates amateur radio until the storms come in, and then she wants to sit right next to it and hear all the storm chasers and where the storms are and how they're responding to everything. If you have any interest in amateur radio, this is a great place to go. We're trying to encourage maybe to have a testing, have the VEs, the volunteer examiners, come next year and conduct testing. If anyone would be interested in that. To get the first license, it's very simple. There's no code to take. It's in and out. APRS? This one's on VHF, so your very first license, just you're in, and no joke, they do this in an afternoon. They have the classes in that, you know, it's you could do this in an afternoon. And so as you saw, for $35, you can get on if you have a local repeater in your town. I can talk to our repeater where I live on that little radio, and you can because this one operates on the VHF frequency, so you could do a radio or a weather station. Mm-hmm. You have to be in control of your station at all times. So if it's in your house, then you can shut it off. For the balloons, there's a shut-off frequency that you can dial in using your keypad and shut it off if you needed to. But it seems to be making a comeback on the APRS. People are realizing that there needs to be another way to communicate other than text messages, because that's all it is. We're just sending a text message. Everybody thinks that AT&T created text messages. That's not true. The amateur radio created the text messages and the cellular radios. And I think that's all we have. Lunchtime. Any questions? Sorry. Nope. All right. Thank you. That's all of them. I'm not much of a slide guy. Yes. Yeah. No. It's a white one after that. That's packet. That's for someone else.